You're calling from a 509 area code. Where are you calling from?
Hey, Michael, this is Ronald Raygun.
Oh, how are you, Mr. Reagan? From the worst to the
Good. I wanted,
best.
yeah.
Yes.
Shout out to Greg. And I just wanted to say I've called a couple times and poked fun at our friend John from San Antonio,
Right.
and I just want it to be known to the universe. I don't know if he listens to Michael shows, but
I actually think
he
he
should.
does, which surprises me. I didn't think he did, but he made a reference once where I think I just doesn't call. I'm not worthy of his call time, but I think he does listen.
Right. But I just wanted him especially to know that it wasn't good fun, and I didn't mean to offend or hurt his feelings.
I'm sure not.
And
John is in contrast to Greg, where when I say, Greg, I hate you, I'm not really kidding. Just kidding.
oh, come on.
No, I'm kidding. No, I love Greg. I do love Greg, but
But
I love
but
John.
seriously,
Like I love John.
but seriously,
Yeah, but
but
seriously.
seriously.
But seriously.
The thing is, I'm just a man. I'm flawed. I'm coarse and unrefined, and I'm prone to taking the teasing too far, and frankly, it often takes the touch and care of a beautiful woman to get me to see those flaws. So shout out to Josh from Chicago's mom. Um, she really brought me around, after that show. We had a long talk, and she said, John from San Antonio is a person too, and you should probably call and apologize. So, anyhow,
Okay. Anything else?
the
you'd like
apology
to
part
add?
is serious,
Yes.
but the other part, yeah, it's not so much. Anyhow, I'm curious. I've said for a long time, and I'm obviously like a privileged white guy,
Right.
like in every possible way, but I've said for a long time that the overt racism is gone, and it's all sort of doglessly coded stuff, and I think maybe that's why I found the march to be so shocking. Did that strike you at all too, or were you sort of aware of the fact that there were these armies of neo-Nazis
Well,
in the wake?
I mean, it's a good question. No, I guess would be the simple way to answer it. But Matt, do you want to add something first? Then I'll elaborate.
No, I feel the same way. I guess, and I don't know if this is a new sort of internet phenomenon because I know these people were from all over the place. It wasn't just people from Charlottesville, obviously. But yeah, I would be surprised to see that many people in like North Dakota. I think I don't know, like that expressly white supremacist. I mean, I think it was shocking. I mean, when actually more interesting, when people were saying that they were chanting "Jews will not replace us," I remember watching a video and be like, "That's not what they're saying, you guys. They're saying you will not replace us." And then that Vice documentary come out where they're very clearly saying Jews will not replace us. And that moment of I remember my my lack of credibility to the first time when I'm like, why? No, let's not get carried away, guys. And I was wrong.
I mean, I think that this stuff lays dormant. It's what is interesting to me is that the continuum of things that you hear, it shows that it's a continuum. Like I remember, I think one of the most bizarre examples of overt racism that I ever heard when I was a kid. I mean, yeah, like 10 years old. It stuck with me. I was at someone's house and there was like an ad for like a new sitcom. And this woman goes, "Finally, a sitcom with some white people." Right? Like this is like the mid to late, like, sometime in like the mid to late 90s. And it was just like I got it at the time. It was like, wow, like this woman has no recognition of how anything works in this country, and she really thinks like that, Martin is like a threat to her. And I just
Problem.
think, I just think that like if you take those attitudes and then you add a couple of other things where, You can build your social media communities and radicalize. And then you got a president who gives you a wink, and then you've just recovered from having a black president. And then I also think, the economic is not exculpatory, but it is environmental. And I think like Corey Pine does a great job of explaining, like, even people that are relatively better off in terms of income and privilege, like, everybody's just in this much more liquid and stable environment. And usually what people do when they're in those kind of environments is sometimes they either diagnose their problems correctly and act well, or other times they just kind of try to find their own kind of personal path. And then other people, it's a very ripe time for things that are already in the system anyways, which is a tremendous amount of racism. I don't know.
It's very fascinating to watch right-wing people sort of twist and turn and do these mental gymnastics to try and distance themselves from those groups, but at the same time, they're swimming in the same pool. So
Yes.
there's only so much they can do. They sort of agree that the statues should stay up, but we shouldn't be Nazis. But fundamentally, their message was right, and sort of cultural agreement about, like, today on the local talk radio, they were saying Washington State's going to have to change its name, going with the Trump line as if it were some sort of slippery slope. But it's interesting that they can't just denounce it and move on, because they kind of need those people.
Well, that's the other thing, right? Is that the Republican Party is the party of white identity politics, and and we had that interview, that guy who wrote the book on the creation of like modern center right parties, and how a big part of it was all of a sudden, if you're in the kind of elite capital class and you're facing competitive elections, what could you possibly have to offer people, right? Like, your whole core agenda is horrible for over 90% of the population by any objective metric. So, you play to people's identity, you play to their bigotry, and it's what is hard though now is like they all are swimming in the same water. They're following things to their natural conclusion. And I don't want to, it's disgusting watching Democrats still being like, there's a difference, this is about right and wrong, not right and left, and all that bullshit. But at the same time, it is a whole world of difference between Mitt Romney's obliviousness and dog whistling, but he has the ability to recognize and say publicly that this is a different moral universe, and then have a president who is, the only thing that I think would temper saying that he's just purely defined by his racism is I think his narcissism and selfishness supersedes everything. But like, he's a racist, and his response to this is, that's an unequivocal thing from a sitting president. It's unbelievable.
Right. Are you guys going to play the crying Nazi guy?
No, we're not.
We're not. Why? What did you think about that?
Well, it's just my favorite video of all time. So.
We're kind of leery of it because as if he's laying down the predicate for Nazis to commit violence. Like they're victimizing themselves in preparation to start smashing people.
I see. Yeah, I guess that's a good point.
I don't trust that guy. Michael was saying he seems like a bit of a attention seeker.
Yeah, that's another thing with some of these people is like, how do we?
You guys saying it's a false flag?
It's false flag. I have the document. Matt and I were talking about it. It's totally unprompted. And he's a Trump operative. He goes back to the. That'd be great if we just started doing.
Hi, folks. Sam Seder here. We still need your help on our Patreon page. YouTube ads have come back, but not nearly as much as we had before. So if you can help us out, any little bit helps. Head over to our Patreon page right at this URL, and you'll help us keep helping you by making videos